Okay, so here we have a sewing machine. Chances are if you're doing a textiles project, you're going to need to use a sewing machine. There's lots of different parts of the sewing machine and they can appear quite complicated to thread at first, but when you know how to do it, it's really easy actually. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be learning how to thread the sewing machines. But first things first, let's go through the parts so you know the names of those parts. You've got 2 thread spikes. Chances are you're only going to use one of those thread spikes at once, but most sewing machines have 2. There's tension hooks, 3 tension hooks. One here, and another one here. Now this one is not always up, so sometimes you might need to use something on the side called the balance wheel here, and you might need to turn that to make this 3rd tension hook go up and down. Okay, can you see something else that's moving while I turn the balance wheel? The needle. So the needle goes up and down in a sewing machine, and that's where the thread goes through. You also have a needle plate, and part of the needle plate called the feeder dogs, I think they're called. You don't need to remember the name of that. Pull the fabric through to the back of the machine while you're using it. There is also in this area a little presser foot. I think it looks like a little duck foot. I'm going to take that off. They do come off because sometimes you want a different kind of presser foot for different things, but the one that you'll be using most of the time looks a little bit like this. If you can see it. And they can clip on and off of the machines, but you probably won't need to do that very much. There's also a bit of the machine called the extension table, which just pulls off like this. Now, sewing machines are slightly different to at threading and at sewing than if you were to use your hands. So if you were to do hand embroidery, you'd be using a needle and you'd be using 1 thread. Whereas with the sewing machine, it uses 1 needle and 2 threads. And those 2 threads tie together as the machine pulls the fabric through, and that's what creates your stitches. So the bottom thread, or the 2nd thread, is kept in this little area here, inside a little bobbin. I'll go more into how to thread that in a minute, but it's important that you know it's there. Okay, so now you know all about the different parts of the sewing machine, let's have a little go at threading the sewing machine. So you're going to need some thread, machine thread like this. It can be any colour, but I'm going to use black today because I think it shows up a bit better. The first thing that you need to do is you need to pick one of these thread spikes. It doesn't matter which thread spike you use, I'll just use this one for today. Be really careful with them because they can be quite fragile. Okay, pop your thread onto the thread spike. At the top of the machine, you'll notice there's some arrows, and they point in the direction that you want your thread to be going in. So I'm going to follow those arrows with the thread and take it to the first tension hook, and I'm going to tuck it underneath that tension hook. And then I'm going to go down because this arrow tells me to, and then I'm going to come back up again. So do you remember I was telling you about that 2nd tension hook? Can you remember how you need to bring that tension hook up if it's not visible? You use the balance wheel. So turn that balance wheel towards you, and there up pops the tension hook. You're going to make sure that your thread goes from right to left through the tension hook and then back down following the arrows. Then you'll see there's a 3rd tension hook, and I think it would be quite good to zoom in at this point, so I'll just do that so you can... Hopefully you can see a little bit more detail this area here where the needle, tension hook and needle plate with the presser foot, where all those items are. So the first thing that you're going to do at this point is bring the thread through this tension hook. Lots of people make the mistake of trying to thread it with the end of their thread at this point, and yes, you can do it like that, but it makes it a lot more complicated. So all you really need to do is you just need to, I'll do it forwards like this because otherwise it looks wrong. You just need to bring it round and to the back like that. I'll do that again just in case it wasn't clear. Use your thumb, bring it round the thread, and it should just go into your tension hook like that. Now we get to the tricky bit. It's threading the needle. So with this needle, it's a little bit different to other needles that you might have seen with embroidery, hand embroidery, because the eye of the needle is actually at the bottom, not at the top, like it would be with a hand embroidery needle. I've got lots of thread here, so I'm just going to trim down the extra bits, but it also gets rid of any frayed ends, so I don't want that bit. And another thing to remember is it's good to hold the thread as close to the end as you possibly can, like that. It's not focusing. Well, very, very close to the end. And if you're having problems actually threading it, there's two things you can remember. Hold the thread closer to the end, trim it, and even a third one, you can even wet it a bit, and that will actually make the thread go through a bit easier. So, thread the needle from front to back. And it just takes a bit of practice, and you'll learn to do it quite easily in the end. And then bring that top thread underneath the presser foot and to the back of the machine. Now you can forget about the top thread for now. I'm going to show you what to do with it. So, in order to get to the bobbin, what you need to do is you need to take off the extension table. So you just put your hands on it and pull it to the side. Then you want to open this little door, and inside here you have your bobbin and bobbin case. To get the bobbin case out, what you need to do is use this little lever. You don't want to touch either of these two levers or everything will just fall out of the machine. And although it can go back in, it's far too complicated without lots of practice. So really, whatever you do, don't touch these two levers, but this lever in the middle. If you open it, then your bobbin will just slide out like that. So, here is the bobbin inside the bobbin case. If you keep this lever open, the bobbin won't fall out, but as soon as you close that lever, it will fall out. It's really important with the sewing machine and with the bobbin to know your clockwise from your anti-clockwise, because you want to make sure that your thread is rotating anti-clockwise. So, let's see if this is going clockwise or anti-clockwise. If you place it on the table and you pull the thread, see if it's going clockwise or anti-clockwise. It's going this way round at the moment, so I can see that that is anti-clockwise. I want it to go that way round. So what I need to do is very easy, pick it up, turn it over, put it back down, and now it's going clockwise, which is the way you want it to go. If it's going anti-clockwise, it means that it'll be harder for it to get picked up, and sometimes it doesn't get picked up by the top thread at all. So you might find it's quite difficult to actually thread your machine. So once you're sure that it's going clockwise and not anti-clockwise, you put your bobbin into the bobbin case, and what you need to do, you'll see there's a tiny little slit in there. When it focuses, so you'll see there is a tiny little slit here, and what you want to do is you want to bring your thread into that slit like this. Do you see? And then you're going to bring it along this line until it gets into this hole. Sometimes you hear a little click when it gets into that hole. There you go. So now you know that your bobbin is threaded, and let's just check one more time. When I pull on that thread, is it going the right way? The answer is yes, that is the way that you want it to be going. That is clockwise, the same direction as the second hand goes on your watch. Okay, when you've got your bobbin case and bobbin threaded correctly, you want to put it back into the sewing machine. So you'll see it's got a little rhino horn. I like to think of it like a little rhino horn, and that must always point upwards like a rhino's horn. And if you look really carefully in the machine, you might see that there is actually a little groove for that rhino horn to go into. So you just place it like that and push it. You'll hear a click, give it a little bit of a wobble to check that it's not going to spin. I can see that's not going to spin. If it does this, you need to push it a little bit harder because your machine will get tangled if it's doing that. So push it in nice and firmly, give it a wobble, and then make sure that your thread is just tucked in like that. Okay, so going back to the top thread, you want to take this out to the side and hold it while you do this. So I'm going to just hold this out to the side. Don't hold it too tight, just hold it nice and loosely. What we're going to do now is we're going to use this top thread to go down and pick up the bottom thread. Now, can you remember how you can turn what you turn to actually get the needle to move? It's called the balance wheel, and it's at the side of the machine. Because I want to show you what's happening in detail here, I've not zoomed in on that, but it's the wheel at the side of the machine, and you want to always make sure that it's turning towards you and not away from you. If it's turning away from you, it's not going to pick up that bottom thread. Okay, so I'm turning it towards me now. What I'd like you to do is just look for a little black thread going across here. It doesn't happen every time the first time, but it looks like it's happening this time. Okay, and the needle has picked up the thread. So give this thread a little tug at the side, and you might see a little hoop that's just appeared. And that bottom thread has come up through the needle plate. So now we can get a nice little pair of scissors. Don't cut it though, swipe them to the back, and then you've got two threads up at the top like that. So bring them to the back of the machine, and that's how you thread the machine. And because I know it's so complicated to do that last little bit, I'm going to show it you one more time. So hold this top thread out to the side loosely, hold it to the side loosely, and then turn the balance wheel towards you so that that needle goes down, and look for a piece of thread that goes across and swipes across so it picks up your other thread. When you think it's done that, give this other thread a little gentle pull, and you'll see a little hoop appear at the bottom. And then what you want to do is you get a nice pair of scissors and swipe them all to the back. Swipe those threads to the back. Sometimes it's a bit fiddly, which once you've got it so far, you can use your fingers as well. Just don't get those fingers underneath the needle, that's what you don't want to do, especially if your machine's on. In fact, if you're threading the machine, it should always be off. That's #1 rule. Okay, so that's how you... This is just a quick recap on how to thread the top and bottom threads and pick up the bottom thread with the top thread. So the first thing you need to do is pull up one of your thread spikes and pop your thread onto the thread spike. Follow the arrows that are on your machine to the first tension hook and bring your thread underneath and into the hook. Bring the thread down, following the arrows, around and back up again to the second tension hook. If that tension hook isn't already up, then you can use the balance wheel, turn the balance wheel towards you until you can see that tension hook. Then you want to make sure that this thread goes from the right to the left and into the little hole. Then it will go back down again and to the third tension hook, which is just near the needle here. So you're going to use your thumb to bring the thread into the tension hook, and when you've got your thread through, you're ready to thread the needle. I just like to make a habit of trimming the thread so you've not got a frayed end, and hold the thread very close to the end so you've got a little bit more control. If you're holding your thread like that, you've not got very much control. So hold it very close to the end. Make sure that your needle's up, so you might need to use the balance wheel to just control the needle a little bit, and thread your needle from front to back. This bit takes a bit of practice, so you might take longer than me, or maybe I'm going to take my time today. It's a bit fiddly. There you go. Once you've got your needle threaded, you're going to bring the thread down and underneath the presser foot to the back of the machine, like so. Now you're ready to do the bottom thread, so take the extension table off. Sometimes there's things inside. Open the door. Use the lever to take out the bobbin case, and I'm just going to take this out just to check that it's going the right way. So pop it on the table, pull the thread to see that it's going clockwise. I can see that it is going clockwise, which is this way, or that way. That is clockwise. Okay, so you're going to put it back into your bobbin case. Put this into the little slit here, just let that focus. Okay, and bring it, once it's gone into that little slit there, you're going to bring the thread along and into this hole, and just check that it's rotating the right way. It is. Okay, then you're going to make sure that the horn, like little rhino horn, is pointing upwards. Click it into the machine, give it a wobble just to check, and you can just leave the thread like that for now. Hold this thread carefully out to the side. Don't pull on it too hard, and use the balance wheel, turning the balance wheel towards you. And wait for a little thread to go across. The thread hasn't gone across there, so I'm going to keep turning it. Each time the needle goes down once and up once, you're going to check for that thread going across, and there it is. Pull this little thread gently to see if you can bring up that hoop, the bottom thread, and you should see a little hoop or a loop. And then thread, or use your scissors to pull that thread to the back of the machine. So now you've got two bits of thread coming to the back of the machine. close this up, pop the extension table back on, and you're ready to sew.